realfaith.org.au.
I didn't like me. I still didn't like me. I thought I did, but I realised I didn't. And being alone was really hard. And then all these things that I'd shoved down for so long, like, why do you do the things that you do? Why do you behave the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? Why do you believe the way you do? I never stopped to really think about.
Welcome to Real Faith. Conversations about the impact faith has on our lives and the challenges we go through, helping us today and giving us hope for tomorrow. That's real people, real life, and real faith with Eric Scatterbo.
Well, our guest today is once again former AFL player Andrew Jobling. As we heard last time, Andrew grew up always chasing validation and admiration and thought that obtaining it would bring him lasting happiness. But, as we heard, even though he played professional Australian football for 7 years and later became a best-selling author of several books, he still hadn't found what he was looking for. Today, Andrew joins us to share more of his story and to tell us about how he finally found true fulfillment. Once again, Andrew is sitting down and having a chat with me in our Melbourne studios.
Well, look, we've spoken a lot about my professional life. We haven't really spoken a lot about my personal life. I mean, that's a whole nother story in itself.
Yeah.
You know, I again, part of this insecurity and part of this validation was being attractive to the opposite sex. You know, as a footballer, as a teenager in the 80s, you know, there was a lot of very poor male role models. I got a lot of poor exempling around misogyny and objectifying women and, you know, and that was 7 years of my life from the age of 16 to the age of 23. So you can imagine the impact that had on my belief system around relationships and girls and, you know, and it's all about, you know, the physical aspect of it. And so, you know, my relationships.
Not exactly the best role models on how to treat the
I had
opposite
terrible
sex.
role models. I mean, my dad was an amazing role model, but he just wasn't as around as much. He was working very hard, didn't spend a lot of time with him, spent far more time with footballers who were doing, you know, these are footballers that were very well known, and these are footballers that at the click of a finger could have 5 girls chase them down the street. And so I'm thinking, well, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to be that person because, again, then I'll feel special, important, loved, validated, valued, whatever you... And so...
again, another wrong path to fulfillment.
Terribly wrong path. And the tragedy about this path, this is the tragedy that people were hurt along the way. I've been married 3 times and I've had 3 divorces. And because I think I got married thinking, well, when I'm married, then I will feel loved.
Again, thinking it's the answer.
Expecting that my partner at the time was responsible for me feeling happy and being happy and feeling loved, not recognising the fact that that's my responsibility. And so, you know, I would get into a relationship and go, well, I'm still not feeling the way I want to be feeling, so I'd be looking elsewhere. And I didn't act on that in a bad, I mean, and I'm not going to get into the details, but you know, relationships came and went because I thought, well, this is not working, so I need to find another one, and then got married again, and, you know, and then I probably disengaged from that second marriage, so that ended, and then the third marriage.
So would you put it down to unhealthy expectations?
Unhealthy expectations. Also, I didn't deal with stuff, you know, I didn't deal with a lot of my own stuff, and you know, you go out of one relationship. I quickly went into another one without reconciling the previous one. Now it got to my third marriage, and we were at a crisis point, and I just did not know how to fix things. I didn't know how to be a better man. I was at the end of my tether, and this is when I got encouraged by a very trusted mentor and friend of mine to explore Christianity.
Yeah, how did that come about?
So, well, this is where I was. I was looking for some kind of counselling or help, or, you know, I knew... You know,
what you were doing wasn't working. Something had to change.
Nothing was working. Nothing was working. And so a friend of mine who at the time lived in New South Wales, and I'm obviously in Melbourne, said, hey, I've organised this person to come from Alaska to run a week-long sort of healing Christian workshop. And so she said, I think it would be worth you coming. Because I told her, she knew I was able to be very open with her about my life and my struggles. And she said she'd recently herself found Christianity and was a born-again Christian, and she said it's had an amazing effect on my life, and I think it might help you. And I thought, well, I trust her. So off I went. Spent the most uncomfortable week of my life, let me tell you.
Why was it uncomfortable?
Oh, because it was just so out of anything that I've ever a whole week. You know, you go to church for an hour or so, and that's one thing.
Yeah.
To go to spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, you know, watching this process unfold in front of you, and you know, it was very much around working with forgiveness and healing and with God's grace and watching people. And I don't know if I believed it. I'm watching people being healed in front of my eyes, and I'm, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know. It's just
so very challenging for you.
Very challenging, very challenging. But enough, after a week, it was enough for me to go, okay, well, this is worth exploring. And that was the start. That was the start. I mean, I left the week with a lot more forgiveness, because I'm very hard on me. I've always been very hard on myself and very condemning and of me and things I've done and said and things I should have done and should have said. Very hard. You know, I think most people are their own worst enemy. And I just left feeling a level of peace and like hope. That was, I think, they were the key feelings I left that with. And from that point, that was, I don't know, that was around about 2015, 2016, I think. And since that time, you know, I came back and found a church and, you know, started going regularly to church. Didn't understand much of what was going on. Still don't understand a lot of what's going on, but I know that, I think I just know now that I'm forgiven. You know, I trust that I'm forgiven and that I'm okay, and that I can pass it up to God, and I don't have to have all the answers, and I don't, and my success is not about what I achieve or what I gain or how much money I've got or how many books I've written or how many games of senior football I played. I'm successful because I'm here, because I'm upright looking down at the grass at the moment. I'm a success in life. And it's amazing with that feeling and that peace that comes with that, and that this mission and, you know, my purpose. I know that God's put me on this planet to impact lives. So that gives me joy every single day, because I know every day no one can steal that from me. No one can take that from me. I can't lose that because I'm in control of that journey. And I guess this all led me then to probably the most significant period of my life happened just before COVID, when my third marriage came to an end. And that left me, and then a few months later, the world goes into lockdown, and Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world, right?
Yep. Been there. Was part of it.
So all of a sudden, now here I am feeling horrible about myself with all these questions, what's wrong with me? And I'm now in isolation. And so my normal go-to position would be, okay, well, that relationship's over. Now I'll get into another relationship, but I couldn't because I was in lockdown. So all of a sudden I'm now forced to face the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, for the next probably 6 months, the most uncomfortable period of my life, but the most transformational period of my life. Because
why uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable because I didn't like me. I still didn't like me. I thought I did, but I realised I didn't. And being alone was really hard. And trying to, all these things that I'd shoved down for so long, like why do you do the things that you do? Why do you behave the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? Why do you believe the way you do? I'd never stopped to really think about. So the voice of God said, Andrew, you need to spend some time to understand who you are. So I spent some time. I read an amazing book by I don't know, your listeners may know of a guy called Dr. Alan Meyer.
He's been in the studio. I've interviewed him in the
Well, you know
past.
Alan Meyer. Yeah. He's a great friend of mine. We actually met in 2019. We did an event together at a church I went to, and I was sitting there listening to him talk, and then he sat there listening to me talk, and we connected. We swapped books. He gave me his book, From Good Man to Value Man. I gave him a book, one of my books called The Wellness Puzzle, and we went on a journey together, and I helped him with his health and well-being, and he helped me with my spiritual journey. And I read that book, and I've read it about 5 or 6 times now, and I started to understand myself. reading that book, I started to understand. I really stopped to think about, Andrew, why do you behave the way you behave? And that's when I started to reflect on that period as a footballer and that influence from the male role models I had. I started to think about the impact. Why was I so insecure? I started to think about my mother's journey, my mum, and I won't get into her story, but my mum came from Hungary just before the Second World War from a Jewish background, and she had her own insecurities and didn't feel unconditionally loved. And I know I adopted some of her lack of self-worth. I know, you pick that up as a young child. You pick
Feelings
that up.
of lack
I
of
started
worth.
to learn through reading Alan's book about the chemical impact on my life and the impact from a sexual point of view that, that he calls it highs through the eyes in his book. He talks for men, a big risk is sight. When we look at an image, a sexual image, it sets off this whole chemical set in your brain, which, and I start to really recognize, go, wow, that's why I do that. That's why I'm looking. That's why, okay. And I started to understand myself. And with understanding, I started to realize there's nothing wrong with me, because I've always said to myself, Andrew, what's wrong with you? And I started to realize there's nothing wrong with me at all.
Oh, so you had thought you were defective in some way.
I thought there was something wrong. I thought I was defective. And I realized you're okay.
You're falling into the same traps that most guys fall into.
100%.
To a certain extent, yeah.
But you don't know what every other trapped man falls into. You just know about your own life and the turmoil that you've created. And this is, so it was such an enlightening moment, such an awakening where I realized all of a sudden, I'm not broken. I'm okay. I've got challenges. I've got struggles, but we all have. So with understanding came acceptance. I started to accept myself. With acceptance came true forgiveness. And obviously with God's grace and the help of God, I've got to the point now where I've forgiven myself and I've learnt to love myself. And within this period of time, from the start of COVID lockdown, from someone who really didn't like himself at all, I love myself now. And I know that I'm loved. I know God loves me. I love me. And it's amazing when you have that peace, what then starts to happen in your life.
And I'm almost starting to like you at this point.
Wow. Hopefully some other people
amazing.
like me too. But, you don't feel like you are lovable. You don't feel like when you know you and you know what you've done and you know the things that have happened, and I have a lot of regret with the women in my life because they're all amazing women. All of them amazing women. And because I was ill-equipped or unprepared or didn't understand or, I affected their lives. I had an impact and, an unsettling and unhealthy impact on their lives. And that is something that I can't change. And that is, whilst I forgive myself, it's still something that, and I want to talk to all men right now that, men, you're having an impact on lives, and it's
we could maybe sometimes think, it's just me. This doesn't affect anybody else. But that's a good point. What we do, how we treat the women in our lives, is impacting their lives,
and it's impacting our children's lives. It's impacting men.
Our children
lives.
are seeing how we're treating our lives.
Absolutely. So it's been that was a powerful period in my life.
Our guest today is once again former AFL player Andrew Jobling, who's now a best-selling author and motivational speaker. We'll hear more of Andrew's story, including how he finds true fulfillment. That's coming up when we return right here on Real Faith.
The Word for Today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
You're listening to Real Faith, conversations with real people about how God works in their lives. If you want to know more about integrating faith into your life, our website is realfaith.org.au. Just go to the website and you'll find helpful articles about the impact faith can have on your life. Once again, that's realfaith.org.au.
Welcome back. I'm Eric Scatabo, and today, once again, I'm chatting with former AFL player and best-selling author Andrew Jobling, who's sharing his life journey. As we've been hearing, Andrew grew up always chasing validation and admiration, and thought that obtaining it would bring him lasting happiness. Unfortunately, even though he was growing and maturing as a person, finding lasting fulfillment always seemed to be elusive for him. Now we'll find out what happened next in Andrew's life as he continues to share his story.
Now, I wanted to get back to Dr. Alan Meyer's book. Not only did he, correct me if I'm wrong, but not only did he correctly diagnose some of the challenges you had as far as relationships with women and the traps that we as guys often fall into, but he also gives you strategies on how to overcome those challenges. It's not just, I have a problem, but no, here's how you can change your life to not fall into the trap of just being trapped with our eyes. Is that right?
That's right. He's got a wonderful term he calls bounce your eyes. Because for men, our challenge is, that's why there's so much advertising and
we're visually oriented, and
we are very visually oriented. And so it doesn't take long when you lock eyes on either an image or a female, and if you stay looking for too long, then bang, that chemical reaction's happening, and it's the stimulation started, and he talks about bouncing your eyes. So he says the second you notice that you're looking at something, you say to yourself, that's none of my business, and you just bounce your eyes and look in a different direction. And that's been
very practical.
Very simple, very practical, not always easy, for sure, because when you bounce your eyes, there's someone else. I mean,
you got to bounce them somewhere,
right? There's gorgeous women everywhere.
That's and unfortunately on TV we're bombarded with all kinds of images.
Of course.
But it's acknowledging, yes, this is a challenge. We're not unique, but there is a strategy of bouncing our eyes, maybe don't watch certain things that are going to be challenging, etc.
Absolutely.
So
it's addictive behavior. I mean, the bottom line, it's addictive. And you've got to distract yourself. You've got to create another, and I've been able to do that in a lot of ways. For me these days, it's very easy to distract myself. Well, and not even distract myself, but focus on what's going to move my life forward. Focus on how do I help people. Focus on, who's the next person that I can lift and encourage and inspire. What's the next book I can write? What's the next podcast? Who's the next person I can interview for my podcast? It's easy. Who's the next, person that I can just encourage in the street or smile at? Or it's a lot easier these days for me, whereas I used to just, when I'm sitting there, it's just easy to click on a website or to look at something or whatever. But I don't even need that anymore because I've broken that addiction. So anyone that's feeling addicted, it's just one day at a time, one moment at a time, but just be strong. Just feel God's strength there with you every moment, one moment at a time. And it's amazing how quickly, relatively, before you know it, you're on a straight, narrow path and doing better things.
Now, at this point, let's kind of look back at some of the themes of your life. From the beginning, we heard about striving, trying to gain acceptance and what you would think would bring you fulfillment. And we've heard how you tried to, I guess we could say, you tried to get fulfillment from affirmation from the fans in footy, affirmation from having a best-selling book, just external things. But now...
Well, I spent my whole life chasing things I could never catch.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. I was chasing something that I could never get.
Or weren't designed to bring you fulfillment in a lasting way.
No. I mean, now I don't need to chase anymore. I mean, I'm always going to aspire to do more and be more and have more and create more, but I'm not doing it for validation anymore. I'm doing it for impact. I'm doing it for significance. I'm doing it to help other people. I love me. And I have God's love, and every day God and I talk, and I talk. He listens. Sometimes he talks to me, but it's just a different place to be. It's just I don't need to chase anymore. I don't need to. It's amazing. Like, I don't feel guilty. I used to feel guilty all the time for not being productive 24/7. I used to feel
that you had to do things.
Had to be doing something. If I couldn't sit and watch television. Now there are many times during the day where I'll just get up and take my dog for a walk, or I'll just sit on. I might even have a power nap or a meditation, or I'll watch a half-hour show on TV that I really like to watch, and I do it and I don't feel guilty. I enjoy it because I know when I'm doing what I need to do. When I'm impacting lives, but the rest of the time I'm I'm at peace.
So the paradox is you were striving, but the Lord says, be still and know that I am God. Be still being the important words there.
Yeah.
So you've learned, hey, I can be still and God will still love me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's this interesting paradox.
It's the same mentor that I was speaking to recently, and she, again, it's inbred in me to achieve, and there are still times I fall back into, Andrew, you've got to do it, and her said, just pass it up, just pass it up to God. You know, you can do your best, and then let God do the rest. You know, and that's been incredible, even just recently to say.
So giving up control.
I'd say, okay, Lord, here I am. I've written this book. It's in the world. Take it where it needs to go. I give that to you. This conversation that you and I are having, Eric, it's like, hey, I can't control who's listening to this. You are God. You're in control. I give it to you. This thing that I'm worried about, Lord, I can't do anything about it. You know, my dog at the moment is having some health issues. You know, all I can do is look after her and love her. But God, I give it to you to heal her. And
that's got to be refreshing.
That's the best. I just love it. Just pass it up. I mean, goodness, why wouldn't you just do it? Like, whatever you want, just work towards it, focus on it, give it to God. You got to do the work. I mean, you can't just sit on the couch and say, God,
so we
make
do our
money
part.
come into my bank account. But but if you're working, I think people think they've got to work to the nth degree and have all the answers. I mean, that's why people, I think, have so much control issue. I must be in control of every No, you don't need to be in control of every process. You've just got to get the ball rolling. You've got to keep the ball rolling, and then you pass it up to God. And let
do what you can do.
He'll bring
and give it
the
to
people that you need to you. And I just know that faith has been such a big part of my life, even without the knowledge of God and the impact he's had. But I know
you see that now.
He's been there my whole life. He's guided me to this point. I look back at my life and I still pinch myself. How did I end up here? This young, skinny, sickly, sooky, middle child kid with no skill ability. He's played 7 years of professional sport, has published multiple books, is living a life he loves. How did that happen? And I go, well, God knows. Like, that's all I need to, that's the only answer I need, is that God got me here. I didn't do it on my own.
And here you are today, and you've written a book about your faith journey called Tears of Joy.
Tears of Joy, yeah. Yeah, so Tears of Joy, I mean, this is, it is about my faith journey, but it's also about the process, so the things, the power of our mind, the power of our thoughts, the power of what we focus on that leads us into a feeling, because it's a feeling that moves us. So if we can control and understand that our feelings are really dictated by what we focus on. So when I focus on the fact that I can pass it up to God and He's in control, I feel peace. I feel confidence. And therefore I'm more likely to take the action that I need to take to create the routines. And everything I've achieved, and this is why I can sit here and be a multiple best-selling author, not because of ability or talent, but because of the routines I've created. The reason I play professional sport was not because of ability, that's for sure. It's because I created good routines, good work habits. That I'm healthy at the age that I'm at, and I'm healthy and lean, not because of genetics. It's because I created the right routines. I have good routines around eating and exercise and mindset. I've created good routines around my prayer and reading the Bible. I do it every single day. So success, the S in tears is success, but success is whatever people define success as. And for me these days, success is not a achievement. It's nice to have money if you want to have money and have acclaim and all that sort of stuff. But to me, success is a feeling. If I feel peaceful, if I feel significant, if I feel joy, to me I'm successful, and it doesn't matter how much money I've got in the bank. If I feel loved.
And all those things that you just mentioned there all come from our relationship with the Lord.
Absolutely.
So we can all be successful.
We're all successful if we just believe.
Yep. If we put our trust and faith in Him.
Yeah, 100%.
Andrew Jobling, thank you so much for sharing your life journey with us.
You're welcome. Thanks, Eric.
Well, that was the conclusion of my conversation with former AFL player Andrew Jobling, who is now a best-selling author and motivational speaker. And as we heard, Andrew has finally found true lasting fulfillment through faith in Jesus Christ. He's finally discovered that he doesn't have to strive for acceptance and admiration anymore, but that his Heavenly Father loves him unconditionally. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to find out more information about Andrew Jobling and his books, you can go to his website, andrewjobling.com.au. Once again, his website is andrewjobling.com.au. Well, until next time, I'm Eric Scadabo. So long, and God bless.
You've been listening to Real Faith, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message through our website, realfaith.org.au. That's realfaith.org.au.
Real Faith is a production of Vision Christian Media.
This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au.